40 years ago, the older generation could not afford to be picky. To have a language and culture of your own was a luxury that they really couldn't keep and survive. Pauline, the interviewer, what do you mean people couldn't afford to be picky? No, they couldn't be picky. They had no choice when the survival of their children was at stake. While they were the backbone of this country in the fields, as laborers, miners, and whatever other unskilled jobs they did, English was not very necessary. But as the trends of industrialization raced on and rumors of the Second World War were upon them, the desire for a stable place and perhaps for a skilled or semi-skilled profession became more of a reality. They saw the necessity for learning English in order to live and relate to the Anglo society. They know, or they knew, if they stuck to their own culture and language, their children would suffer. The family. What impact did all these changes have on the family? Through the oral histories of Boulder, we gather people became isolated from their families, from their culture, from their language. It seemed that as long as Mexican-American people were living in towns, mining communities, ranches, working as laborers, barrios or colonias, and only Spanish was spoken, the family stayed pretty much intact. After it became imperative to move because of employment, I think they were truly confronted by culture shock. They left behind them their main support group, which is the extended family. It includes your family, your relatives, your compadres, your friends. Already there was a loss of your cultural background. The family is la visita, loose and relaxed, which may be obsolete in many instances. Now it's replaced by la cita, the appointment, confined and timed. The obvious, like food, was different, and some people were ashamed of it. Your music perhaps too loud. Your language, it was already a handicap. But the psychological impact was the most damaging, like the way you felt and did things. You were taught almost reverence for your parents, not because they were perfect, but rather because it was something they had earned, los viejos, through their living, their caring, and their struggles. The care and concern for your younger brothers and sisters is very protective. For those who attended school, the importance of learning was stressed. To learn, not to compete. If you were especially academically gifted, you had the greater responsibility to care for your people. You were taught to admire and not to envy. Women, mothers, never really knew what was really going on in the outside world if they were in the home, unless their children complained. But women did play a very important role in the past. They kept the culture alive. They were transmitters to their children, and the remnants persist. They would only know of their children's struggle if the children complained. Their husbands went to work. He was usually the sole breadwinner, and since his culture demanded he be a macho, he may not have said much about what happened to him outside of the home. The family was the backbone, where you got support, encouragement, security, where outside you got very little. It was not English that robbed the family of their culture and identity, but the climate in which it was taught and projected. Some of our children, too many, emerged with a very poor image of himself. All that had been dear to him subtly in many instances, was told it was not desirable. The children were caught in the middle of two different cultures, and they suffered. The remnants of our culture is still there. The awareness is back among the young. They want to revive what has been lost. There is much there. There is much to gain. Fear was one of the emotions we were confronted with. Fear of repercussions from such topics as would be offensive to Anglos. Fear of deportation. Fear that you are not taken serious at some of your grievances. What was said at times on the tapes was with very much caution. They would not speak much of discrimination. They spoke of the fear of going to clubs or meeting places. Or they feel out of place, where they would only be the outsider. The fear of public places such as banks and hospitals. These were some of the fears that were sometimes told and sometimes only subtly hinted at.